Hello and welcome to The Wire. My name is Indra Shekhar Singh, and today we are going to have a very special conversation on the state of agriculture in the country. You may all know and may have seen how drones were dropping bombs on peacefully protesting farmers earlier in February. But that's not all. We've all experienced hyperfood inflation when we paid 400 rupees for our tomatoes. Even just last year, as per news reports, food inflation was skyrocketing. And the general trend towards malnutrition and hunger in this country is also growing. Now compound that with erratic rainfall and weather, which has deeply affected the agriculturalist and also our food production. So to understand the state of the general food economy and agriculture in India, we have with us Ramon magsaysay Award winner P Sainath, who's going to be talking to us about all these issues. P Sainath, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And to begin with, let's start with the most, I think, the most egregious thing that's happened so far, where drones were used to drop tear gas. This is the first instance, and you've also said this, the first instance where aerial drones were used to attack a country's own farmers. And this is happening in 75 years of our independence. This is happening in the world's largest democracy.
Actually, you can see in the last 1 month, 4 extraordinary developments. One is this, that I believe we are the first country in the world where aerial or drone warfare has been used not against invading armies, not against foreign or domestic terrorists, but against your own citizens. Not against armed agitators, but against unarmed farmers. And this is accompanied by, an assault of multi-layered barricades, iron nails, hundreds of feet of concertina wire, barbed wire, which opens like a concertina, your anti-riot vehicles, water cannon, you name it. It's like somebody was readying for action on the LAC with China. Not in your own country and with your own citizens, unarmed citizens. That was one of the. Second thing was to the government that came to power in 2014, promising implementation of the Swaminathan Commission report's main recommendations within 12 months. Within 3 months, it went to the Supreme Court filing an affidavit saying it cannot be done, it would distort market prices. The government, which destroyed and buried the greatest contribution of Professor M.S. Swaminathan, then confers a Bharat Ratna on him for work which they have mocked, derided and trashed. Third, the Household Consumer Expenditure Survey, the HCES, which is a lot of nonsense because you've changed the methodology like they did with farm suicide numbers, 2014. The methodology changed so much that from 13-14 onwards, you can't compare the data with the previous 19 years. You've changed who is a farmer, you've changed the number of categories, etc. So they changed the methodology. Till now, we have not got the complete data and show how much better it is than it was in 2012, which is strictly speaking, no economist with a tiny modicum of integrity would say is comparable data. And they have not given us the full data. And therefore show that there's a great improvement in the countryside. But even this data shows us farmers' incomes are below rural incomes. The average of rural non-farmer incomes. Or the total rural average, farmers are below that total average. Which means that the others are way ahead of them. Okay. Now, the fourth was that you said grandly, and that was what was being set up for a grand pronouncement on MSP, which would say MSP is now being paid on 2 things only, wheat and rice, and we will expand it to 5. MSP is to be paid on 23 crops already. The demand is that you make it uniform for all crops. If you did not, if successive governments failed to implement the MSP for anything but 2 crops, and there is also one non-food crop called cotton in this thing, but if they fail to expand it, if they fail to fulfill the obligation of 23 crops and reduce it to 2, you're saying let's make it legal for 5 is actually a compression of, you're excluding 17
crops
from what are already supposed to get it. From what's already supposed to be entitled to MSP, you're reducing it. You're not expanding it. So these 4 things happened in the last month. The aim clearly of what's going on seems to be to drive a wedge in the farmers' movement. Because it's a large and complex movement with hundreds of organizations and groups participating. And also, the farmers' movement itself has recognized from the incredible successful struggle of 2020-21 that you're going to have to build a much wider movement with greater alliances, and you're going to have to look at issues apart from the ones that they so brilliantly, successfully foregrounded, like MSP and loan waiver. These are a must, they're a given. But there are also other issues affecting farmers which really now everyone needs to take note of.
So let's talk about these issues. And I think you raised 2 very important points. I'm going to just quickly ask a response for that. As per the official numbers, 2 farmers die every hour. You think more farmers are dying every hour in this country by suicide?
To tell you the truth, we have no idea about the real scale of what's happening, because the methodology, the counting, the methods, all have changed. And under this, since 2014, in every field, not just farmers, there has been a greater suppression of data. Consumer expenditure surveys are...
So, but let's for making it simple for the audience, do you think greater than 2 farmers are dying every hour? Would you agree with that?
I would say that it might vary.
It might vary.
Region to region. It might be worse in some areas. It may have been what it always was in some other areas.
Sure.
Yeah. So but I want to make this point to your audience.
Please.
That we have had farmers' data in the National Crime Records Bureau since 1995. The first 19 years were characterized by errors of omission, meaning you excluded women, you excluded Dalit farmers, you excluded everybody. From 2014, you started errors of commission. Consciously, Gujarat says we are not accepting it. The numbers are from their own police stations. Where do NCRB numbers come from? They come from every police thane in the country, go to District Crime Records Bureau, district submit to the State Crime Records Bureau, who in turn submit to the National Crime Records. The NCRB data is a census, or was. Now, Gujarat says we are not accept it. 1 year, you remember there was a period when 2 reports came out at one time between. Okay, yeah. Second, you can judge the answer to your question about whether it's worse, because in 2017, this government was so upset with the NCRB data. Whatever they did, whatever the fiddles, whatever the distortion, it kept showing very ugly numbers. So, Indra, they shut down the NCRB in 2017. They merged it into an organization called Bureau of Police Research and Development. The BPRD does not have a national census. It will give out sample surveys, outsource it to market research agencies, not to the police thanes. So the NCRB was actually shut down and merged into BPRD.
Wow.
Then they found that they had shot themselves in the foot, both feet, because it affected a lot of other data and judgment. 10 months later, they demerged the NCRB, and the NCRB returned. The NCRB returned like the phoenix from the ashes. It rose. So if you just go to the NCRB site, you will find the letter saying we have come back. We were in the BPRD. Now that the order has come, we exist again as NCRB.
As an independent autonomous body.
It is an autonomous, supposed to be an autonomous body of the under the Home Ministry. But a number of things have been forced on the methodology. And so this is what happened. How do we know what the damn numbers are? When this is the case, how do you know what the numbers are? You create multiple categories. This Maharashtra had started in very early under Vilas Rao Deshmukh, but it did not. Therefore, you could see every year the NCRB figure would be 1,500 to 2,500 than Maharashtra's own figure. Maharashtra would say 2,000, NCRB would say Maharashtra 3,500, because they had already started doing that under Vilas Rao Deshmukh. So errors of omission are now built on with errors of commission, conscious interference. The errors of omission included social prejudices. You're a Dalit, I'm a police constable from an upper caste or a dominant caste. I don't recognize you as a farmer.
Right, and if you're not linked to land, you don't have land ownership. If you're a tenant farmer, all these things are missed out.
Which is a violation of the census definition of farmer.
Farmers.
Census does not demand that you are of a particular gender or sex, that you are of a particular land scale of land ownership. It does not even demand that you are the owner.
Of course.
Yeah. It's an inclusive definition that includes women, tenants, Dalits, everybody. It does not exclude them. But in society, our prejudices are Adivasis, they're forest encroachers. They're not farmers. Dalits, this is all redistributed land. Ye kya hai? Kisan hai kya? That is the contemptuous casteist attitude.
Towards the farmers.
Towards the farmers.
Now, I'm just going to, draw your attention to two very important things that you've raised. One is this symptom of a distressed agrarian economy which is happening through the farm protests. And there were 50,000 farmers in Ramlila Maidan. The BJP's very own Kisan Sangh had a massive rally, I think, a couple of years ago in Ramlila Maidan. And now we have also, on one side, high rate of farmer suicide. Now, experts and some other, because we don't have the real facts, some people believe that the suicide numbers could be 5 times what the government is reporting today. Now, what is the underlying reason for this? What are the reasons that you think has led India to this point where we are beginning an Amrit Kal on dead farmers?
Okay, 3 things. One is what you mentioned about the Kisan Mahapanchayat at Ramlila. One, that it wasn't even attempted to be a full-scale rally or march on Delhi, and you got 50,000 people. That itself should tell you the response and signals of distress in the countryside.
Absolutely.
That is the first thing it should tell you. Second, their own household consumer expenditure survey shows you that farmers' income, which was supposed to have doubled by this period, has actually fallen below the rest of rural India. Third, when the signals are so many, you can look at, firstly, let's take the India agricultural budget. 83% of this budget, 83% of what you're giving out in this budget is for direct beneficiary programs.
The DBT programs.
Yeah, so like the 6,000 rupees.
Of course, PM Kisan Nidhi.
Okay, now what does that mean? It means only landed farmers will get it. Tenant farmers in India make 40% of the total. They're totally excluded by this. Why will they get it? They don't have the patta. They
The
don't
valid
have,
documents.
yeah, they don't have the valid documents, so they're not going to get it. Women farmers are not going to get it. Their properties are not in their names, right? So you've created this DBT thing, and it's a very narrow focus on a group of landed farmers, even amongst whom there is a lot of trouble in accessing it. That's one problem. Second, the public need to understand that if you look at expenditure on fixed assets in agriculture, 82% comes from the pocket of the farmers. It comes from farmers' households. Okay? How much comes from public investment? 15%. How much comes from corporate investment? 3%. But 100% of policies are being skewed in favor of that 3%. Okay? This is the simplest way I can put it for your viewers. Farmers are making 82% of the investment in fixed assets in agriculture. Corporates 3%. Public investment 15%. Second, the entire, why you ask me why it's happening, the distress, for 25 years, you have shifted agricultural credit from the farmer to non-farmer. There used to be till 2013 in agricultural credit, there used to be two things: direct credit, indirect credit. Direct credit was directly to the farmer. Direct credit was directly to the farmer, and indirect credit went to institutions around the farmer, etc., and cooperatives, etc. From when we start our bold new embrace of neoliberalism, it starts shifting more and more to indirect credit. By 2013, it's a scandal. Very little is going in direct credit to the farmer. So the RBI actually dissolves the categories and makes it one category of credit. So you can't tell, it's difficult to tell how much is direct and how much is indirect. Now, what is very clear is that overwhelmingly this credit is directed towards non-farmers. Single example, Maharashtra, giant state, 55% rural, population, 55% rural. In every year, the NABARD, National Bank Agriculture Rural Development, makes what are called PLCPS, Potential Linked Credit Plans. And what it lays out there is what the scheduled commercial banks follow in their credit policies, in their credit disbursement. In Maharashtra, 53% of agricultural credit, not rural credit, 53% of agricultural credit goes to the city of Mumbai. There are no agriculturists in Mumbai, but there are many agri-businesses
in Mumbai.
And that's where it's going. All this was enabled by earlier policy changes, which broke down and made a mockery of priority lending. 40% for rural, 18% for agriculture. They started redefining what, in Manmohan's time also, in Narasimha Rao's time also, they started redefining what is priority lending in agriculture. In various terms under agriculture, people could buy Scorpio SUVs, and say that many companies made a killing. If I live in Bandra Reclamation, Mumbai, I could buy a nice big SUV, and the sales slip would be issued ex Yavatmal. I'd get my vehicle in Mumbai. It would be shown as a rural sale, enabling that credit company to get lower rates of interest from the RBI. They would get lower rates of interest. That includes a fair number of big name companies. So, all these scams we have seen through, but more and more it enabled the playing with priority lending credit. There was yet another thing called DRI. From 72 it was there after bank nationalization. Differential rate of interest. Banks are typically meant to give at least, I think, 4% of total, and in some cases 1 or 2% of total revenue at least 1% of total revenue to the most marginalized at a differential rate of interest of 4%. 1% of total thing. Now, the industry-wide performance in 2000 or 2005 was 0.24%. Nobody, no bank achieved that 1% except 1 or 2, which were very committed at the time. So you've actually violated your own laws, with standing law from 1972, your own regulations. Okay, so this was yet another game. So you have diverted lakhs of crores of rural credit, of agricultural credit, thousands of crores, tens of thousands of crores to non-farmers. What happens to the other farmers, the real farmers? Oh, but incidentally, there have been studies, including those by Professor Ramakumar, that showed between 2000, 2007 or 8, that 53% of agricultural credit, of that lending, was disbursed in metro banks and branches in 3 cities of Maharashtra.
Wow.
Just 53%, whereas 38% was disbursed in rural banks, in rural branches. So, as that money goes away, from the late 90s, mid 90s, farmers have returned to the Sahukar. They've returned to these blade companies, the finance companies, sharks, rackets, and even very big, supposedly respectable companies, and a number of giant rackets in the name of so-called microfinance. In fact, in 2006, Andhra Pradesh banned 6 major microfinance groups, very big names, threw them out of Andhra Pradesh, and the then Chief Minister, Y.S. Rajshekhar Reddy, declared on the floor of assembly, these fellows are worse than the village money lender. For once, actually, I totally agreed, because the village money lender is subject to peer pressure. He is subject to social pressures of the village. These guys are not. They're sitting and playing the stock market in Mumbai. They declare themselves as public listed companies. So there is an unbelievable debt burden mounting. There we can say clearly, the debt burden on the farmer today is greater than what it was a few years ago.
How much greater? And if you were to compare it to the state of 1990, because that I believe is a watershed moment where the big loan waiver was given in the Janata Dal government, from that point to today, do you feel that the state of indebtedness in this country has increased or decreased?
Please, it has increased massively. And please remember that Chaudhry Devilal's, it was his waiver. Chaudhry Devilal's debt waiver was 10,000 rupees across the board. Was there any gigantic sum involved? Nothing. Now, please note this, that we are talking about farmers' debt indebtedness. They need to clear 1 lakh, 2 lakh loans, 50,000. You have written off 15 lakh crores of corporate debt, which were NPAs. You've written off 15 lakh crores. Yeah, but you can't find the money for the farmers. You can't find the money for investment in agriculture. And many of those companies that have had money written off, loans written, are also involved in the countryside. So has the debt burden grown? Obviously, if you write off 15 lakh crores for the richest 1% in the country, the debt burden on the rest is going to explode.
Explode. And why I bring this in 1990, because that's the year before LPG, the liberalization program happened, which is supposed to improve the lives of Indians and rural economy. And if it hasn't performed so, I think we need to go back to the policy thinking again.
Oh, absolutely.
But I would like to also just get your attention to, it's been 10 years of the Modi government. And when Modi government came into power, they actually said that we need to double farmers' income. There is a problem in agriculture that we need to address. 10 years have passed.
4 steps. 1, they came to power saying we will implement the MSP recommendation of Swaminathan Commission within 12 months. Second, they went and they said it will distort market practices. And when the Kisan leaders met the then agriculture minister, he said, "Arey yaar, ye sab chunav ka jumla hai.
Ji.
Why do you take it seriously?" And they filed that affidavit in the Supreme Court saying, not possible, not feasible, showing complete contempt for the voters who had voted, crores of farmers who had voted for them, thinking that this would happen. Third, the third step, they declared doubling of income. Mr. Jaitley makes this first in the 2017 budget. Now you have, last year or so, for the 18-19 period, in 21-22, you get the 77th round report of the National Sample Survey. What does it show? It breaks farmers' income into 3 groups. Yeah, that is agricultural income, what you get from cultivation. 2, non-farm income and wage labor. Non-farm income including wage labor and livestock. Now you were supposed to double this. In 2013, it was 6,426 rupees per household average. Now they say it's 10,000 rupees, 10,300 rupees. That is prior to adjustment. That is nominal. Okay. If you correct it, it comes to 8,300, 8,400.
100 rupees.
Further break it down into the 3 categories. It has risen, whatever rise has happened in wage labor and livestock. In actual cultivation, the income earning of the farmer has fallen. So after 10 years of your rule, we are seeing that it has fallen. It did.
Wow.
It's livestock, there's been an increase, small increase. Wage labor has been. Now, please also look at the other implications of the rise in wage labor income. It means more and more farmers are competing with agricultural laborers for whatever work there is. Okay? In the long run, that is not at all a good thing. Anyway, all these are the reasons why yesterday in Delhi, we had this platform called the Kisan Mazdoor Commission release a detailed agenda, which
I was about to ask you the next question, which is related to this, that when we talk of solutions, yesterday you presented a forum through which a new discourse on agricultural policy thinking can be developed, maybe if not to the government, but at least to the people, that the people can be made aware of what's happening. So could you talk briefly about that? And
you're absolutely right. The approach is not about convincing government only. We really hope there are people in government who will understand that the kind of problem going on is not just an election year issue. It's going to get worse. But look at, you're right. So the thing is, the solutions approach or the approach of has to first necessarily critique what exists. What we found in the Kisan Mazdoor Commission, I'm not a member of the main commission. Let me explain to you in a couple of lines who that commission is.
You're trying to bring about organic intellectuals onto the platform.
Of which Nation for Farmers took the initiative.
Yes.
Nation for Farmers is a non-farmer group, intellectuals, public citizens, academics, bank, union workers, etc. Now, the first thing you notice is that the runaway favoring of corporates is gathering tremendous pace. The Indian Council of Agricultural Research has signed not contracts, not agreements. It has signed partnerships with Bayer and Amazon. What the heck do Bayer and Amazon have interest in bettering the lives of Indian farmers?
Or Bill Gates for that matter.
Yeah. But Bayer is the the gargantuan giant of agribusiness of pesticides. Bayer includes now Monsanto, which we all used to rail at and the whole world used to rail at. It's now silently swallowed into Bayer. Now these guys are gaining a huge foothold in the partnerships in your extension, agricultural extension, education, and very importantly, in digitalization of agriculture, which includes, say, they set up this giant central base, Agri stack. Bayer and Amazon and other multinationals are going to have a field day appropriating your farmers' data and selling their products to the farmer. Right?
Yeah.
So the rush towards corporate hegemony in agriculture has taken a huge new leap forward.
So new Company Raj, is the new Company Raj already here, or are we expecting it to come very soon?
I think the new Company Raj is here. It is opening many branches. It's doing both horizontal and vertical integration. It's here. It's here when I'm saying when corporate investment is 3% and farmers' investment, farmer household investment is 82%, and yet you're seeing everything happening in favor of these guys. Your KV case, Krishi Vigyan Kendras, one-stop centers for extension, education, everything. Bayer and Amazon now have pretty unlimited access and entry to those.
Is this even constitutional?
Totally unconstitutional, but which reminds me, I should point out what you said earlier about the watershed year of 1991.
1990.
Yeah, 1990.
Janata Dal government.
I use 91 as the thing because the formal arrival of new economic policies is Narasimha Rao,
Of course.
1991.
Of course.
And when this happens, I'm trying to you're asking me whether it's constitutional. I'm saying every day since 1991, we have violated the Constitution in letter and spirit. What does your preamble say? Justice for all, social, economic, and political, equality, okay, social, equality, liberty, fraternity. Your directive principles of state policy. The directive principles of state policy say the first thing the directive principles of state policy enjoin upon the state and government the need to fight inequality. Since 1991, we have constructed inequality, and that inequality that you have constructed consciously is a violation of what your sworn constitutional path is. Worse, because we have not only constructed that inequality, we have celebrated it in the name of market, in the name of free market, in the name of choice. We have celebrated it. Do people have a choice? Actually, it's a joke, in the sense that market gives you choice. Indra, if the hundreds of millions of hungry Indians had a choice, I think they would choose to eat. Since they're unable to eat, it means there is no choice. So I'm saying we are violating the Constitution every single day since 1991 by our aggressive promotion of inequality, which, if you look at the Forbes latest list of billionaires, we now have 169 billionaires accounting for close to a fifth of the Indian GDP. Never mind what the government says is the GDP, which is another conversation.
See, and this gets me to the final moments of this interview. And the question is, how can food be disregarded and farmers be disregarded in a country that's highly malnourished, in a country where about 800 million people need food, farmers are being killed on the street, and if there is a solution, what this irony that presents itself to us, that food is valued, farmers are killed, there's hyper food inflation. What is all this? It doesn't make sense. After a while.
Rabindranath Tagore saw all this more than, I think, about a century ago. He had this beautiful line: food is the source of great wealth. Food production, a source of great misery. You can disregard it, actually not despite the inequality, but because of the inequality. Because of that inequality, you have the Nero's guest phenomenon. People of our class backgrounds are not really seeing what's going on. And you're living in a period where 100% or 99.9% of big media, especially corporate media, are totally with the state and government. They are totally on it. Yeah. How many editorials did you read condemning the use of drone warfare? And saying we are the only country in the world that has done it. And then secondly, the media are owned by the very giant industrialists, by the very billionaires who are benefiting from the crisis in agriculture.
Yes, and that gets me to my last and final question, because it's very, very topical right now. Do you think the MSP law is possible? And if it is possible, how?
It's absolutely possible. You can create a legal framework for MSP that does not freeze something at one point in time, that allows for the developing situations to come. Of course you can. It was possible for you to nationalize the banking industry, after which the nationalized banks rose to be highly profitable institutions, until you destroy them by milking them for the corporate sector, who would have given 15 lakh crores write-off in one time, in a very brief period of time. Your farming took off at around the time of the Green Revolution, because for the first time, many peasants who had never had access to credit were getting some credit. Yeah. In very low bank balance accounts, you could get credit. So that was one thing. And look at how many bank branches increased. You could do all that. You can do this also. It's not impossible at all. You have made laws on a million things since the adoption of your constitution. Why can't you do this? You are able to do all sorts of things inside and outside of the laws for the corporate world. The question is, do you want a farming which is in the hands of communities or in the hands of corporations? That privileges people or privileges profits? That looks at farming as a bedrock of Indian civilization, or as an industry to be handed over as a plaything to those who will put farming, every aspect of it, on the share bazaar tomorrow, and subject it to even further volatility than it is now. That's why one of the demands of the Kisan Mazdoor Commission, one of the demands of nation farmers and of many farmers groups, including, you will see, the SKM and others, is in the either you get out of the WTO, or you say agriculture is off the table. Other countries have done that with particular issues. You say that agriculture is off the table. We are not going to subject our farmers to so-called competition with corporate farmers of US and Europe. It's not possible.
But then we go back to GATT, and there are, that's another Pandora's box of
That,
GATT,
by the way,
WTO.
by the way, please note that it is hurting them also. 8 European countries are seeing farmers' protests erupt every day.
65 countries last year, in all of last year, reported farm protests against the corporate systems and policies of international globalists.
Yeah. The French started it very early during our own crisis when Bouvin took his bulldozer and smashed the McDonald's in France, remember?
Yeah.
So that was in the 90s.
But a very landmark moment.
A landmark moment. Now you're seeing tractors jamming highways from Paris to wherever in France, from Berlin to Bonn. Yeah. Farmers are protesting everywhere. Some of them may not even know it, but their common enemy is corporate power, which dictates those policies to the EU, to everyone else, and whose policies are shaped in favor of those. Western Europe was able to hold out much longer because their farm unions were organized and strong. In the meantime, now, it's also giving rise to serious right-wing extremism and anti-migrant movements. All this. But no doubt about it, all over the world, farmers are rising in distress.
Sainath, thank you for being on the show with us. And viewers, if you like this conversation and have feedback or would like to say something to Sainath, don't forget to comment on our YouTube channel or comment or tweet on our Twitter page. This program is now over, but The Wire will be bringing to you more programs on agriculture, politics, and world affairs. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon.